Good morning. I'd like to call the Congregational meeting of Kingwood Christian Church for 2020 to order. I am standing in on behalf of Larry Gentry and Elaine Kimsey, our board chair and vice chair, who are not able to be here in person. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a quorum. We have budgets and officer slates being passed out right now. Many of you voted already online, and so what I need to do right now is I need to get a show of hands of people who are here, members who are here who did not already vote online. I need a show of hands. We need 9 to make a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. Quorum is met. We did have Jason, our wonderful new office admin, already has from our online voting a list, and we had 43. We had 43 that already cast their votes. So we only needed a quorum of 50, so we have met that requirement. All right, then I'm going to go forward. The next thing is to read for you. This was not written by me. I'm going to read the words of Elaine and Larry in the annual report to the congregation. We're guessing that all of us will remember 2020. It started off well enough with good plans for continuing to move our congregation forward in living out the teachings of Jesus Christ. The budget was built on sound and reasonable estimates, and we had energetic leaders to help us move forward. The new board decided to concentrate on 4 major goals. Number 1, to eliminate the mortgage debt. Number 2, to improve governance through good communication and clear policies and processes. Number 3, to identify and equip future leaders and task volunteers. And number 4, to deepen our extravagant welcome through specific inclusion goals. And then COVID-19 came to town. Did we just give up or give in? No. We did what we have done before. We decided to adjust, to meet the challenge, to look for silver linings. Our new overarching goal became Reimagine Church. The board, departments, and committees had deep discussions about how to do this, and we have discovered that this difficult time has given us opportunities to learn things we didn't know we needed to learn, like how to persist, how to be more flexible, and how to better support one another in so many different ways. We learned how to worship through YouTube and Facebook watch parties, and then we invested in equipment that allows us to live stream our services rather than pre-recording them. We learned how to meet by Zoom for board meetings and Bible studies. Greg Allen and Ryan Nelson-Pariag and others have faithfully and patiently helped us get aboard the internet in various ways. Our worship team has been extremely creative in figuring out the many details that have allowed beautiful music, inspired preaching, and creative children's moments, along with ways to meet at the table for communion. We created protocols for meeting outside and inside with reasonable safety, and the Holabahs stepped up to help us with appropriate sanitizing. David Putz and the elders have done a monumental job of checking up on everybody through these months, finding out who is struggling, what is needed, and how to help. Plus, they've been a loving voice in the isolation. Carolyn King became the drop-off-a-birthday person. Many of us learned how to do drive-by birthdays for the kids. Emily and Hannah Holabah made tie-dye bags for the children and hung them on their front doors. Zach and Reagan Morris decorated youth driveways with chalk and kept the youth group connected through Zoom meetings. Kathy Gallagher got creative with missions and helped various mission teams reimagine doing what they've done all along, just a little differently. And she kept all of us reminded of all the opportunities to help. She and Greg Ingram were also instrumental in encouraging other churches in the Family Promise rotation to continue serving homeless families through the pandemic. Ryan Nelson Pariag, Jeff Morris, Jim Dillier, Ray Thompson, and the property committee teams worked constantly, week in, week out, day in, day out, keeping the building in shape, prepping it for dealing with COVID-19, keeping the grounds beautiful. Lindy Nelson Pariag, our treasurer, successfully wrestled with government instructions to help make use of the federal payroll protection program to help with staff compensation and things like utility bills during the shutdown. Plus, she took all the input from board members and staff and with her finance team put together a budget that is both reasonable and hopeful for next year. In a year like this, that's pretty close to miraculous. In the midst of all of these activities in reimagining church, we were still able to work on our goals. Goal number 1, eliminating the mortgage. With the help of Les King and the fundraising committee, we received $134,000 in special donations toward mortgage reduction. With this reduced mortgage, we were able to re-amortize our building loan to reduce our payments by $1,400 per month. Church members have really stepped up here to help out with donations to the mortgage reduction fund, special gifts like the COVID fund, and regular continued giving. Goal number 2, better governance and communication. We have been vigilant in improving communication within the board, with elder contacts, with the newsletter, and through the website. Work continues on full compliance with our bylaws, and we're in process on updating policies, processes, policy manuals, and job descriptions. Our 5 board officers served as a personnel committee to handle staff matters for the rest of the year, with the intention to recruit a regular personnel committee as described in the bylaws next year. When our office administrator position needed to be filled, we decided to change the job description to match what we now understand is needed in the office. And then we hired an operations and communications administrator. Goal number 3, identify and equip future leaders and volunteers. Craig Parker and the nominating committee recruited some great faces and continue to incorporate our newer members into leadership positions. When Becky Metter felt the need to resign as secretary to care for her new baby, the nominating committee found a replacement in Julie Bonin, who graciously stepped up to help us through the rest of the year. Goal number 4 was to deepen our extravagant welcome through specific inclusion goals. We did not form a task force this year as we had planned. However, we have a Wednesday evening group designed to include those who find it difficult or impossible to meet during weekdays or on Sunday mornings. They have finished the story project about the importance of stories in the Bible and in our lives. And they are now studying What's Next, an exploration of the changes impacting faith communities in the 21st century and how we will choose to respond. Additionally, we decided to take a broader view and began studies of racial tensions and reconciliation within our larger community. Wanting to better understand the issues and equip ourselves for inclusion, we started on Thursdays with about a dozen people, including both whites and people of color. Having finished White Fragility about the difficulties white people have addressing the issue of race, the group continues with See No Stranger. This book encourages us to imagine new ways to be with each other. In Sunday school, a small group is learning from Be the Bridge, Pursuing God's Heart for Racial Reconciliation, on bringing the power of the gospel to the racial divide. Our pastor, Chad Mattingly, has worked tirelessly to find ways to use this time of pandemic for good and to keep us going. Margaret Mott, our associate pastor, has been invaluable in helping us work through issues of communication transparency, and other healthy organizational processes. And of course, everyone in this congregation has been involved in some way. Sometimes those ways are unseen, but that doesn't mean they haven't been important. The prayers, the driveway visits, the deck suppers and conversations, the porch drop-offs, the unexpected phone calls just to check in, the cards and emails, the Facebook posts and messages, the atta-girl and atta-boy, the way people have stepped up when a need became known. This is who we are, a community of people who love Christ, love each other, want to help build the kingdom of God on earth, and who refuse to give up when things become difficult. Thank you. I think so. Nice, right? Special thanks to Elaine and Larry for that beautiful report and for all of their work this year. The next item on our agenda is to present the slate of officers for your vote. If you raised your hand a minute ago, then we need to get a card vote from you. We have two cards. The lighter one says, I approve the board nominations, yes, no. You do not have to put your name if you don't want to, but we do require a paper vote, even though it was modified for the online voting. So the slate of officers has been passed out. I need to make one correction on the paper that you have in front of you, and that Brenda Hampton, it's not Brenda Hoffman, but the name was correct in the online slate of officers. So I've already apologized to Brenda for that, so she forgives us. That is the slate there. So what I need is the nominating committee has created this slate. They presented it to the board approved it, and now we need a motion from the floor to accept the slate of officers for 2021. All right, Wes Mott has given us a motion. Second from Tess Mustaine. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will ask those of you that have not yet voted to please do so on your card. Pass them to, I don't know how we do that safely. Pass them, hold them up, wave them. Someone will grab it from you. They're also on the slides, screens up above as well. Any other cards? Here's one over here. All right. Having completed that, I'll come back and give you the vote results, but we'll move on to the 2021 budget. You have a summary of that budget in front of you, and in the bulletin insert, there was a, what did we call it? We called it an update, a summary of the budget, actually, that will, actually that was in an email. This is the third quarter update, but there was an email that went out that gave a summary of what the changes were in the budget, and of course I don't have that in front of me right now. Can I have one copy of the budget, a paper one, just so I can have it in front of me? All right, so the finance team put together this budget based on the pledges received in the stewardship campaign and projected giving. We looked at giving last year. We looked at the budgets that the different departments submitted, and we came up with this budget. So we have presented it to the board. The board has approved it, and so now I present it to you for approval. We need a nomination from the floor to accept the 2021 budget as proposed. Wes Mott gives a motion, and I need a second. Okay, Sue Bullard gives the second on the budget. And now we will open up for discussion or questions. I'll just call attention. Oh, go ahead. Yes. Sure. I'd be happy to. So the main things that were changed, that have changed in the budget from 20 to 21, looking at the expenses, so we're looking at the bottom half of the sheet. One thing is that we have $16,800 less to pay in mortgage payments because of the $1,400 a month reduction that we received with the reamortization of the loan. So that's what that totals up. We had additional subscriptions, partly COVID related. There are things like the copyrights for the music, and in normal times, the copyright costs were about $200 a year for us to be able to have all the lyrics to all the hymns without any infringement of copyright concerns. With COVID, because we were doing streaming our services and those words out on the internet, it jumped up by about $1,000. So not knowing how that was going to play out for next year, we included the increase of that. The other thing that you'll see an increase in the AV budget. There's sound equipment in here that is older, that is not as current, so it makes it difficult with the technology piece to get everything to work together. The sound equipment in the table service was new, 2 years old. This is 7 years old. We also need new cordless microphones. Okay, one thing that's just a change, it doesn't affect numbers, is that we had 2 salaries under ministerial. Those salaries were our youth and our children's salaries. They were under ministerial for different reasons in the past, but we found it to be confusing because we kind of just want to see our ministers' stuff in there, and so those have been moved. It was a net zero change in the money part, but you're just going to see the money change for those salaries there. One of the things that musically we need to maintain our beautiful music program is we need some help with some guest musicians, and so and also during the holidays. Some of our choir members have asked they're ready for a break, faithful choir members who have been ready, and we can't come back yet as a choir, really. And so that increase in the music budget is pretty significant, but that is, and that is just that's not necessarily all going to get spent, but it's money for Josh to work with if he needs to bring in musical support to maintain the quality of service that we have been having. The other 2 really important things I want to mention that we added into this year's budget are staff and minister pay increases. This is not something that has been in our budget for at least the last 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure it's been in our culture to just plan for those things, but most people get a cost of living increase, 3% is the average of that, and we've just not had, I'm not sure why, but we haven't been building that into our budget. And so we think that's really important, that our staff knows that they are valued and that even the most basic cost of living increase is there. So what we did was we included this year a 4% increase for our minister, for Chad, who's been here over 6 years now and hasn't had a pay increase in that time. And he's not complaining, but we're just saying, okay? And also an up to 3% increase for the rest of our staff. That will be determined by evaluations and that will be determined going forward. But none of those increases are going to happen until after the first quarter of 2021 because we just have to keep an eye on things. It was really, well, let me say the other thing. The other big thing that's added, it's not a lot of money, but is an important thing, is under youth and young adults. We made a decision, I don't know, 5 years or more ago, that the camping program for our youth and children was so important to us as a church that we wanted to make it a policy to offset half of the costs for families. It's usually around $250, $300, $350, somewhere in there for the week at camp that our kids go to. For families with more than one child, that's a lot to try to come up with that. But more than being about the money, which we always can provide scholarships if there's a need for a child to go and their family can't afford it. We've always been doing that. We believe, Chad knows this from his statistics and all of his pastor's stuff, kids get a calling to ministry in the mountaintop experiences of church camp. It's that important to them. It is the high point of their whole, Ronnie's over here shaking his head. Ronnie's shaking his head, y'all. And we want to stand behind that as a church. We want to say it's important enough to us. We've been saying that, but we never put the money behind it. And so and probably just an oversight, we just weren't thinking about it. But what that means is that our staff who deal with children and youth have been scrambling for the last 5 years or longer to have fundraisers to come up with that half of the church camp fees. And it's very stressful for them. And we just decided we should just have the money in the budget for that. And they can do fundraisers for other things. They can do a fundraiser for a mission trip if they want to do that, or to help do a work project or something like that. So we just really felt like in our values of youth and children being important, we wanted to put our money behind that camp, the camp scholarships that we offer half to our church members. So you will see that there as well. The other thing that is still in the budget that it's not specifically noted, but we added it last year under staff salaries and taxes, and that was adding $5,000 for staff appreciation and pastor and staff appreciation, so that we didn't have to come to the congregation in October and say, it's Pastor Appreciation Month, hey y'all, you know, here, pass the can around, that we would just have budgeted money for that. When it was Christmas time and we were ready to do bonuses for our staff, that we didn't have to accept donations from the church, that we could just have that budgeted and just use that money for it. And so that's why this year we're going to celebrate Pastor Appreciation Month in November. You'll hear more about that this week, but we're not asking you to send us money for that because we have budgeted money for it. Same for staff Christmas gifts. We won't be asking you to give us money for that as a special offering because we have money in the budget specifically for that. And we're going to continue that this upcoming year as well. So those are basically the changes in the budget. Does that cover any questions? Ann? Yes. Okay. Under the proposed budget, under the income column, this is where I'm going to stop and take just a moment of license, because it was really hard to have a group of 7 people come to consensus on this budget for this year with almost everything being a variable. I just want to say that. Almost everything's a variable. Pledge cards are not variable. So we had the pledge cards in hand, and those pledges totaled, you can see at the top, 59 pledges totaling $321,120. Those we're going to count on, even though it's obviously, of course, it's not set in stone, but those are count-onable. But there were, one of the things that Kathy O'Shaughnessy, our financial secretary, looked at was how many people that pledged in 2020 didn't pledge in 2021, didn't turn in a pledge card. What did that amount total? And so we had that number. It was right at 39,000. Kathy, am I right? Yes. Okay, right at 39,000. So these are active, you know, people that are still active in the congregation and everything. When the stewardship committee made second contacts with families that hadn't turned in their pledge card, a lot of those families that made up the, I think it was 10 or 11, 12, said, we want to support the church, but we just can't give a pledge card because we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns for us too. And so So we had to decide as a finance team preparing this budget, what were we only gonna put the 321 there, or were we gonna include the 39,000 that was given last year, but the people said they couldn't guarantee they could give that? And what we did was we came up with a number that Kathy felt, I don't want to put it all on Kathy, but Kathy, along with the team, felt like 20,000 was a solid number out of that 40,000, basically, of people who pledged last year and didn't turn in a pledge card this year. So we added that 20,000 to the 321 cards in hand and added the 20,000, and that's where we got that number. Does that explain that? Okay, right, okay. So the non-pledge number, this is our challenge. The non-pledge number is usually that little pivot point where we use it to balance our budget. So it's typically been kind of a high number. Greg Ingram, when he was our financial secretary, he really, really worked hard to get us to bring that number down to a reasonable number. And we did do that over the last several years. The problem is with that 20,000, and we don't know, people who were pledged givers in 2020 couldn't commit to 2021, that 20,000 went into that non-pledged instead of into the pledged category, because we just felt like that was, we couldn't say it was pledged if it wasn't. And so that makes that number look really high. And the other thing that's unfortunate is that because we haven't met in person for 9 months, then the loose offering category is not there. We don't know what we're going to look like going forward, if we're going to be meeting regularly at all, if in more capacity, we don't know. So the building use fees was a big one. Last year, that big number was based on contracts we had from people who were going to use our facilities. Obviously, we didn't come anywhere close to that because we only had those people in the building for 3 months instead of for 12 months. So those areas dropped, all of the other areas dropped. So we know that that 99,000 is a big number there. It's a reach. What we thought was the best, most conservative thing to do was that we would ask, and we've already done this, we would ask our leaders who have budgets to just keep it lean, keep it tight in the first quarter of 21, and let's just reassess at the end of the first quarter, also with the giving. And the same goes with the staff, the raises that we built into the budget. Those will not go into effect in the first quarter. We've got to wait and see what the first quarter looks like. We've done incredibly well this year. It's beautiful what we have done with the finances this year, with the continued giving. And I will just tell you, Chad can confirm it, that is not the case in most churches. Most churches are tanking. And we are just like, you know, yes, we've had decreased expenses this year because we weren't in the building, but we kept our salaries the same. We didn't let anybody go. Our giving has been really consistent through this year with regular giving and with special gifts. And so that's kind of the number that we're asking. We're asking that as the faith number. And a budget always has that, but yes, Craig. True. And I just want to point that out because that makes that 99 a whole lot less of a stretch. That's true. We do have the PPP funds. They've been designated for salaries and utilities, which were the allowable expenses for those funds to be used for. They've been earmarked for those things, but the money is still sitting in an account until we know if we are going to get that loan forgiven, that $25,000, and we can't even submit the application yet. So we're still waiting. I think December 7th is now what they're saying that we can, due to the amount of the loan that we got. So that money is there also. So thanks, Craig, for that. Yes, Kathy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. people can't. Okay, so Kathy just said that in addition to people that pledged last year but didn't pledge this year, we have a group of people who are faithful givers who give consistently every month, but they have never pledged, but they are still faithful givers. So those numbers are in that non-pledge. That's where the non-pledged goes. That's how we calculate it. If you're someone that turned in a pledge card and made a commitment to an amount of money, then your offerings show up under pledged. And if you did not turn in a pledge card, your offerings show up under non-pledged. So Kathy's just saying that the number isn't it's not crazy inflated just because of that. And could we hear what Craig said? Do I need to repeat about the PPP? Recap? Okay, so the PPP loan that we got, $25,100, that money's earmarked for salaries and utilities for the church. We have, we absolutely had no problem spending the money that they sent in terms of earmarking it for the allowable things, but we've got it sitting separate right now until we're sure that we get the loan forgiveness, which we expect to get. There'll be an easy form because we had no changes. We did not decrease staff or staff hours, and those were the requirements of the loan to be forgiven. So we have every wish to think so, but we probably won't know until 21 because of just how slow that process is going. So, but we do, that money actually, because it will offset salaries that were paid, then the money that went for the salaries is going to be freed up. So we do have that cushion there. John Cartwright, did I answer your questions? Do you have anything in addition?
No, I just have a little bit of a problem getting money from the dang government.
Right. So John and I have had a lot of conversations about the PPP money. When we applied for the PPP loan, we had no idea what was going to happen. Back in April, we had no idea what was going to happen with our church. We didn't know what was going to happen with our members. And so on behalf of the finance team, we decided what our accountants, I mean my accountant people for my own business as well, I was doing the same. What our accountant at our business was saying is, that's free money that you're going to get. You need to apply for it. People are applying for it and you need to do it. And so it was tricky because our bank, Wells Fargo, did not assist us in any way in getting that loan. I had to go to another lender to get it, and thankfully was able to. But we got it when we didn't know what was going to happen. And the year has turned out well, but that money still will go toward the things that it was supposed to, which was salaries and different. There were a lot of religious institutions that got PPP loans. I'll just say that. We're not at all. And there were a lot that wished they had, and they were so sad that they didn't get in on it. So I don't know what else to say about that other than we did talk about it obviously at length. And any other questions or discussion on budget? All right. Well, hearing none, then I'm going to ask you, if you have not already voted, to go ahead and vote on your card if you approve yes or no on the budget. You do not have to put your name if you don't want to. That's the brown card. While those are being collected, can somebody report back on the nominating, on the leadership slate? Did we pass?
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous passing of the vote on the leadership slate. So that is approved for 2021. That's beautiful. Let's clap on that. Woo-hoo. Thank you to David Putz and the nominating committee for that work to get that done. While we are flipping through, we're just waiting one more minute to get our budget okay, and then I didn't prepare jokes. Okay, another unanimous pass on the budget is also approved. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you all.